Hello, thank you for joining me today. I'm Amanda of Inspiring Inkin. Welcome to my craft room. In today's video we're going to be making this wreath using the fabulous Joyous Noel designer series paper. It looks quite complicated, but I promise you it isn't. So I'm going to turn the camera around and let's get crafting. So here is a close-up of the wreath. It's made of two patterns of the designer series paper, which I'll show you in a minute. I'm going to show you how to make these lovely curled cardstock roses. And each layer of this wreath is actually made from folded paper. It's really quite quick to do, surprisingly so. And what I'll do first is show you the patterns of the papers so you can see the different combinations that you could get from one pack. And then just to quickly show you, this is the Merry Merlot copper ribbon. Really pretty and works really well with this wreath. So here are the papers. So let me just fan them out for you. Put that one around there. So on each of the patterned papers you've got these copper elements, and then on the reverse you've got more flat paper patterns that work really well sort of in contrast. So this wreath that I've got here, I have used these two papers. I have been working on another wreath that uses these two. And then finally, the wreath that I'm actually going to do today, I'm going to be using this one. It's a much more monochrome sort of effect, but I'm actually going to be using the deer, and I'm going to be using this side of the paper. So it's the deer in a forest. So that's kind of my thoughts and suggestions. So what we're going to do is get started with all of the preparation. Just so you know, I am going to speed up the filming a bit later on when I'm doing all the scoring and the folding. So you don't have to sit through a really long video. You can just kind of pause it and you can kind of catch up with me. So I need for each wreath 2 sheets of each pattern. Okay. So you want 2 sheets of that one, 2 sheets of that one. You're going to need some ribbon. Obviously not that much, but you're going to need some ribbon. For the cardstock roses, for this one, I used Merry Merlot. That was a box that's just fallen on the floor, but that's fine. I will pick it up in a minute. You're going to need a really good pair of scissors, a scoreboard, some kind of trimmer, and some thick cardstock. Let me move that out of the way. Some thick cardstock. This is actually the backing that comes with the designer series paper. You're going to make a 6-inch ring. So a 6-inch piece, and then from the floor, which I'm just picking up, I have used a leaf punch here. You're going to need a mountain of Tombow, a little bit of double-sided tape. These kinds of pegs are really useful, and you'll see why in a minute. A pencil, and I think that's it. All of the measurements and the scoring lines and everything else you'll be able to find by just scrolling down. If you're on YouTube, there's like a see more, and all of the measurements will be there. If you're on my blog, just scroll down as well and you'll be able to see all the measurements there. And on both of them you will be able to find links to all of the products that I've used. So if you didn't quite catch which things I've got, then you'll be able to see all of them there. And the last thing that I didn't show you is this. This is the glitter paper. This actually is part of a pack of glitter paper that is part of the Joyous Noel suite. And you've got 3 different colours, and I'm going to be using the Tranquil Tide. And because I'm kind of going on a monochrome thing, I'm actually going to make the roses out of grey granite. Not sure how that's going to look, but I really like the kind of monochrome look. So we'll see. We'll see how it works. So let me clear my desk and watch everything go crashing to the floor again. Right, so I need a scoreboard, paper and the trimmer. I'm just moving. You can hear me rummaging, I'm sure, but you probably can't see me because I'm off camera. I'm just moving stuff out of the way. Okay. I am going to start off by cutting the patterned paper into 6 by 12 inch strips. It is just easier for me to work with. So, and you need, when you're doing this, if you've got a pattern like this that clearly has a right way up, because obviously we don't want our deer sort of upside down, we want them to look as though they're all going the same way. Just make sure that you pay attention to which way you're cutting your paper. Right. Okay. Right, so I've cut them all into 6 by 12 inch strips. And now I'm going to get my scoreboard. And to be fair, you can do this on the trimmer. But I just prefer using my scoreboard. It's actually, for me, I find it faster. But, you know, use whatever works best for you. I have got all of my measurements here, but like I say, just scroll down, you'll be able to see. So on each piece of paper, we are going to score at 3/4 of an inch, or 1.5, 2.25, 3 3/4, 4.5, and 5 1/4. Now, I've mentioned this before, but this might be the first video of mine that you're watching, so I'm going to mention it again. On the scoreboard, you have the scoring tool, and it has 2 ends. So you've got this end, which is the fat end, and this end, which is the skinny end. So the fat end is what you want to use for this particular project. It's what you use for patterned paper. It sort of kind of spreads the pressure, because of the size of it, it spreads the pressure out on the paper better. And it just means that your paper is less likely to crack. That said, a lot of pattern papers, because we're going to do a lot of folding, will crack. I wouldn't worry too much about it. The wreath is quite rustic looking. And I don't mind that it's cracked. But just go really gently if that's something that is going to worry you. Okay, right, so this is going to be the first of many times I'm going to speed the video up, because this is just going to take a while. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed that I've scored every 3/4 of an inch. But I've actually left a gap there at 3 inches, and that's because I'm now going to cut them all down at 3 inches. So that will give us the right width for our strips. And I'm cutting, I don't know, if you have a Stampin' Up trimmer, or indeed another trimmer like this, that has a double-edged blade, so it's got a point on both sides, do always cut both ways when you're cutting. So I'm cutting down, and then on the next cut I'm cutting up. You will maximise the life of your blade by doing that. There we go. Okay, so now we just have one more cut to do, and that is to cut these all into 6-inch pieces. And I'm going to speed up the camera again because this will take a second or two. Okay, so now we have to fold all of the pieces. I'm just going to stack these into the two patterns. Okay, so I've got a basket here that I'm just going to put them all in when I've finished, and all you're going to do is you're going to score them on the fold line, and then you're going to fold them in half gently. Now, I'm not using a bone folder, I'm just using my fingers so that I minimise the risk of cracking the paper. Okay, so I'm just going to do another one, and then again it's going to be a constant thing today with what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to speed this up. So it's just going to take a little bit of time to do this and fold these. Okay, so this is the last one. You might have noticed partway through I'd started folding it this way and then remembered that my plan was to use the Tranquil Tide leaf side. So I had to unfold them and refold them, but that's all okay. So there is my box of pieces. It does, honestly, it doesn't take that long. And I've been kind of making these sat in front of the telly, so you know it's a nice relaxing thing to do. So now we just need to talk about the Wreath Base. This is a 6-inch piece of cardstock. Basically all I did was I got two bowls, so a bigger sort of 6-inch bowl and a smaller one, and I've just cut out the wreath shape. The bigger the base of your wreath, obviously the bigger the finished wreath is going to be. You can't actually, because this is only 3 inches, you can't actually go much more than like a 7-inch circle. It just won't work. But you can go smaller. And all that happens if you go smaller is that the hole in the centre of the wreath will be smaller. Because of the way this wreath is built up, the central hole does get smaller anyway, but obviously the smaller the hole that you start with, the smaller it will end up. So I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to get my lovely Tombow and my pegs because they help. I use Tombow because it's my favourite glue in the world. You can use a hot glue gun or a cold glue gun if you want to. I'm just too clumsy and most likely to burn my fingers to use a hot glue gun. So I'll stick with Tombow because I know that works really well. When you are assembling, you want to pay attention to the way that you have folded your wreath components. So you can see on here that the folded edge is on the right and the open edge is on the left. And when you're putting these on your wreath, you want to do them the same way all the way around. The first one, when I was designing this, the first one that I made, I didn't do that. And it took me ages to work out why it didn't look quite right. And it was because of that. So we're going to start out with the green pieces first. And I'm going to do a few, and then as I keep doing, I'll speed the camera up. So we can make this video not 3 hours long. Okay, so each piece that you have folded, you want to put glue about 2/3 from each end. Pop it either side so you've got enough glue to go onto the cardboard circle and onto itself, and squash it. And obviously if you need to readjust the edges and stuff, do that. Now you can just hold it. Having a peg will mean that you can move on a bit quicker. Again, so next piece, check that the folds are on the right side. Put your glue on. And then you're going to just put it buttered up against that one. Give it a squash. Put another peg on. And we're just going to carry on. I'm just going to do a couple more pieces, and then I'm going to show you how to do the ribbon, and then I'll do the whizzy thing with the camera. So that's going to go on there like that. Okay, one more. It doesn't matter if the glue kind of comes out, because the next layer is actually going to cover it over anyway. Okay, so that's how we start. Then with the ribbon, what I'm going to do is I need a piece about 24 inches long, I think. 20, 24. Obviously it depends on where you're going to hang it. But all I'm going to do is wrap the ribbon round the frame and tie a double knot so it's not going to come undone. Just an overhand knot like that. Okay, and then I'm going to get my double-sided tape. I'm going to put a little piece of double-sided tape here, and this is actually going to work out as extra security, and I am going to put that knot, ooh, so this is going to be, yeah, this is going to be the front. I'm just going to tuck that knot behind. I'm just going to put another piece of tape here. And again, this the knot and everything is going to be hidden by the next piece of paper, and the Tombow. So, right, let me just undo that a little bit. So basically you want the knot to come here on the back. Ooh. No, right. Shall we try that again? I've knotted it. This is going to be the front, so the knot needs to be at the back there. So that's going to go there like that, and then the knot is here on the reverse. Okay, I'm just going to put an extra bit of tape there to pin that down over the top of that ribbon as well. Sorry, that was me getting my front and reverse confused. So there we go. I'm just going to trim off that extra bit of ribbon there. Okay, so let me show you that more clearly. So this is the front. So the ribbon is flat here, flat there, and then you've got the knot at the back. Okay, I'm just going to take some of these pegs off. So I'm going to get my next piece of green, and that's going to go over the top. So again, 2/3, paying attention to which way the cut edges are. And then I'm just going to pull the ribbon off to the side. Oh, just a little bit more. Right, there we go. So it is hidden behind. Right, come on. Doesn't want to play today. So it's in the gap between the two of them, but I'll show you on the reverse in a second. The knot is kind of hidden as well. Now this one, because it's really bulky, you're going to need to put a peg on it and leave the peg on it for a while, and you might need to go back to it and add a little bit more glue later on. Don't worry, I've got Tombow here on the ribbon. It's fine. What will happen is that I'll be covered over in a little while. Okay, so I am going to carry on, and I'm going to do the rest of this Tranquil Tide layer all the way around, and then I will come back to you and show you layer 2. Okay, so that is all of the Tranquil Tide, the green layer, done. Just so that you can see, these are not quite obviously glued at the top because we've glued them 2/3 up, but they are stuck. When you get to your last one, depending on whether or not you've left a gap or how perfect your folding is, you may end up with a little overlap. Again, don't worry too much about that. The next layer going over the top will cover that anyway. And yeah, nobody will notice. It's fine. So I'm just going to take the pegs off. That one is really badly folded. I don't know what I did there. Right, so let's squash it out a little bit. Okay, so starting with the next layer, obviously the important thing for me is that my deers are the right way up in relation to the ribbon. So the ribbon obviously is at the top, so I want my deers to be in the right place as they're going around. Obviously they're gonna end up upside down here, but that's okay. But in relation to the top of the wreath, they need to be the right way up. And also, again, pay attention. So the cut edge is on this side and the 2 folded edges are on this side. So I'm going to do this one here, which is the one that is going to kind of wrap around where the ribbon is. So what I don't want to happen is I don't want the ribbon to kind of get too tangled up. So I'm just going to pull it out so that I can put the paper in the right place. Okay, so that all looks good to me. Again, you might need to pop in some extra glue, and just when you're putting in put your peg on it, just make sure that your peg stays on there for a while. Right, I'm just going to make a bit more glue just there, just to give it a little bit more to attach to. Give it a good squash. And then pin it down with a peg. Okay, so just move the ribbon out of the way. And then let's do the next one. And again, so what you're actually going to be doing is you're going to be putting glue a little bit further up on these ones, because they've got to go around the paper that's already there and then find each other in the gap. So you're going to press it down, get your peg, and let's do the next one. So I'm just going to do a couple more and then whiz it forwards again. So each time just wiggle it around so it can kind of find its other half in the gap. And the reason that I've got these positioned this way, I'm just going to move that one over a little bit, is I liked the wreath being really full. You would get a slightly different effect if you'd space these out more, but obviously I don't want to see the cardboard underneath, and I want it to look quite opulent and full. So it doesn't matter when these sort of overlap one another as well. There we go. Okay, so just keep pressing it up so it's together. So just, I shall be quiet again for a little bit and put the rest of these pieces on. Okay, so this is the last piece going on. I have just moved this piece over just a little bit. It wasn't quite sitting square, so I just unpeeled it. One of the joys of Tombow is I unpeeled it and redid it, and it's working much better now. So actually I think I'll leave that peg on there for a minute, just because I've re-glued it. So there is the ribbon hanging, and there is the wreath. And what I do is I lift up all of these folds, and this is how these concertinas, this is how the wreath actually gets its real dimension, just by pulling these apart. And if like there, you see, this is why I'm going all the way around, if like there it's actually pulled apart, you can get a little bit more Tombow, squash it down, pop a peg on it, and then you can come back to that in a little while. So pull that one, oh, and that one. Okay, got another one there, pinged apart. So let's get a little bit more Tombow. Press it together, put a peg on it. That one. Yeah, that one as well. So let's just pop that together there. There we go, so we've gone pretty much all the way around. So okay, so the wreath in essence is done. Obviously these bits still need a bit of drying time, so what we're going to move on to is the rose embellishments. Okay, so now we're going to make these roses. I said earlier, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make them in this lovely grey granite. what you need to start with are 3 circles. And ish, the circles kind of need to be different sizes. Of course, you can draw around a plate or something, but I am just going to cut myself a circle, kind of a circle, and then kind of another circle, and then actually I want one kind of in between those sizes. And what I'll do in a minute is when I've cut them, then I'll measure them for you, and then you can kind of see in relation to the flowers that we end up with what you've kind of got. So this one is about 4.5. Let's just make it a bit rounder. This one is about 2.5. And then this one should be about 3-ish. Yeah. Let's trim that round. So that's about 3 inches. Okay. So I'm going to work on the big one because that'll be easier for you to see. And then again, I'll do the whizzy camera thing with these other ones. So what you're going to do is you're just going to cut the cardstock into a spiral, and you want this piece that you're cutting here to be approximately the same size all the way around. It doesn't have to be, but it just does make it a little bit easier for you. Okay, and you're going to cut right into the center. Now then, probably the easiest thing for you to do is to scrumple up your cardstock, and I know that is kind of goes against everything that we do, doesn't it? Scrumpling up your cardstock, but it will make a difference later on, and it just softens all the fibres. So trust me, honestly, it will work. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of flatten it out a little bit. So this is where we started from. And what we're going to do is we're going to roll it inside, and this piece, the piece that you actually cut, is going to be the base, and you want that to stay level. So you're just going to roll it in, and it's a bit tricky to begin with because it just wants to go flat, but what we're trying to do obviously is to make a circle as it's rolling, and hopefully the camera's going to be able to pick that up. And you're just going to roll and roll. And all I do is I keep my finger here and I just keep pushing it so that the bottom is staying fairly flat. And you're going to keep going and keep going. And keep going and keep going. It is a bit of a labour of love, but honestly it's worth it in the end. Now, it will try and escape, it will try and ping, it will try and wiggle, and you've just got to be firm with it and just keep rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling. And I promise I'm not going to sing, but I've now got that song in my head. Right, let's keep going. Almost there. Okay. So when you get to the last little bit, that little circle that you got left with in the end is actually going to be the base that the rose is actually going to stick onto. So that is actually going to stick on there like so. What I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to let it go so that it can kind of find its level. Don't be afraid at this point. It will kind of spring itself around. So you can see that that is pretty much the rose. What I'm going to do now is use the heel of my hand, or you can use a book because this can be quite sharp. And I'm just, well, I'm going to stand up actually. I'm just going to press down. And what that does is that gives the curved petals as you go. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Tombow on it. So on that little central bit. And then I'm just going to press this down. Now, if you are a hot glue, cold glue kind of person, honestly, right now, this is the best time to use it. I am actually going to make these and put them to one side with a book on the top of them, and they will stick, I promise. My grid paper sticking to everything. But it will just take a little bit of time. So I've popped that underneath the book. Right, I'm gonna grab myself another piece of grid paper. And then I'm going to make the other two exactly the same. But again, I'll whiz the camera. So hopefully I will be back with you in a second with some completed roses. So here are the completed roses. You can see that they've got lovely shape, different sizes. The wreath is all finished as well. Let me just take the pegs off. So now we've just got the last little bit of embellishment to do. So what I'm going to start with is a piece of the grey granite cardstock, and it's easiest to attach the roses to that and the punched out leaves, and then attach it to the wreath. When I made the first one, I actually tried to kind of balance them all on, because this is all kind of bouncy. It just didn't work. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to punch 3 leaves out of this. And a bit smaller. You can use a punch as well. I'm just going to bring this one in for reference. So I'm going to put the biggest one there, and then some leaves here. Okay, so I'm going to stick these down. Tombow's not quite working. And don't worry about the extra cardstock here. We're going to trim that off in a second once these are on. So I'll just pin that down. So I'm just going to trim that. And I'm just trimming sort of underneath the flower. And then let's get the roses. So that's the top, so I want that sort of there. So I want one leaf there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the double-sided tape for this. Glitter paper is always a bit tricky to stick down. Wet glue obviously works, and glue dots, but for this I'm just going to use some double-sided tape just whilst I'm sort of positioning things. So that's going to go there. And then I'm going to pin the whole thing down with some dimensionals as well. sorry. Just realised that was probably not in shot. Hopefully that is better. There, let me... put a bit more tape on. It is just a case of sort of positioning things where you want them to go, evening them out. There. Yeah, I'm actually really pleased with the way those grey granite roses have come out. I know grey is kind of an unusual colour for a rose, but it seems to work. So. Okay, and then on these leaves, I'm just going to use the mini dimensionals just to pin them down so they don't move so much on the wreath. So I'll just take all of the backings off. And we'll have a tidy up and I'll be able to show you both of the wreaths together. Now the flowers, these roses, I've made them in cardstock today, but you can make them in paper as well. It works really well. I've got one here. This is actually a bigger piece. It was a sort of 7-inch piece of paper. Obviously it's got a pattern on both sides, so that works really, really well as well. So what I'm going to do, move everything, all the backings and everything out of the way. Right, so that's the top. So then I'm going to position that just there. Right, so that dimensional is not going to work there, but we'll pop it on that one instead. And then that one will open up. Those are stuck down. So there you go. So there is the completed version that we made today. Here is the original one. Both very different, but it's amazing what sort of effects you can get from the one paper pack. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon. Goodbye.